Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. Oh, boy. The Vols survived and got a huge win. I mean, this was a big win. Holy crap. That was a close one. What an entertaining game, though. Man, stressful like you cannot believe. That first quarter could not have gone worse. I mean, it was brutal. It was a lot like this.
Please, Pittsburgh. Nothing to see here, please.
Yeah, that first quarter was brutal. I'm telling you, it was as rough as it gets. Hendon was off the mark. The receivers weren't helping him. The offensive line wasn't blocking. We couldn't run the ball. We couldn't do much of anything, and they jumped on us big time. And I had a bunch of choice words I was using, and I'm glad y'all didn't get to hear them.
You don't need to hear things like that. You just a boy.
That's right. Y'all don't need to be hearing that. But anyway, it was an amazing game. The Vols brought it back in the second quarter big time. They really came back in a nice way. Hendon settled down, started throwing the ball well. The defense started playing better, kept us in the game, had a huge interception in the end zone that kind of got things calmed down for us. And then we drove down and scored, and that was a big help. My big concern was whether or not we were going to be able to run the ball. And we didn't run the ball well at all. And that really hurts our offense because that sets up the pass. Hendon really had to take the game into his hands a little bit, and then, he made some great throws. Cedric Tillman came through. Brew McCoy came through. Hyatt came through. I mean, the wide receivers really did a good job, and our defense came through at the end, so that was great. When we sit here and look at the stats, you can see Hendon was 27 of 42. Like I said, he started out a little rough in the first quarter, but he settled down and threw for 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. And really could have had 4 because a couple of them wound up on the 1-inch line. So Hendon wound up having a great game. And we're going to talk about the overtime as well. I'm struggling giving him an A+ because the first quarter was so bad, but that overtime was an A+, that's for sure. Jalen Wright, he had some yards, and like I said, we had some turnovers. And look, we had a couple of really bad turnovers, and what I'm not going to do is start pointing those out and talking about the guys that did it, because here's the reality. As bad as we felt about it and upset as we were, they're 1,000 times more upset. As somebody that played Division I college sports, let me assure you, when that happens or something along those lines, there's nobody on the planet that feels worse than they do. I mean, I was not angry with them. I just felt bad for them because I just know how that feels when you let down your team. It's terrible. But like I say, we only had 91 yards rushing, and that was really a big part of our problem. And I want to blame the offensive line or the running backs, but I can't, because the reality is Pittsburgh has a great defensive line, and they sort of manhandled us a little bit up front. They're tough. Look, they're a really good defense, and they're really well coached. And there was some 6-year seniors up front, and they just did a good job. I mean, that's all there is to it. They're typically good against the run. They were last year. West Virginia had some success against them, but last year nobody did. So, it's not a shock. Here you can see Cedric Tillman with the 9 receptions, 162 yards, and that huge touchdown in overtime, which was monstrous. Hyatt had a great game. He was sort of your possession receiver. Then Brew had a good game. Man, Brew's got some skills. He's got some talent. He looks like a big-time player out there if he ever gets comfortable and gets that chemistry with Hendon that Cedric has with him. And then we had the 2 fumbles in the second half where we kind of tried to give the game back to them and kept them in it. Otherwise, without those fumbles and that blocked punt, I think we wear them out. We win by 14 points, maybe even 21. Those turnovers kept them in the game. But you know what? We came through at the end. And that's really all that matters when it's all said and done. Let's take a look at what Pittsburgh did. Now, Kendon Slavis played a pretty good game. Look, he's a tough guy. He really is. He got knocked around big time, and we took him out in the first half there, that last play. That was a good, clean hit. Hey, that was a really good sack. It wasn't a targeting or anything crazy like that. He just wound up hitting his head on the ground, and I think it gave him a concussion. But he had to go out of the game. But that guy can sling the rock. I can tell you that. And it made a difference when he went out of the game. The Nick Patty came in. He got sacked and hurt his knee, and he was limping around. But I tell you what, man, he made some great passes when they desperately needed it and kept him in the game. There was a couple of times he threw some completions on 4th down, and the game was over otherwise. So he stayed in there pretty good. But you know what? When Slovis went out, I noticed the crowd kind of deflated a little bit, And also, you noticed, do you see how many Vols fans were in that crowd? There was a bunch. There was at least 10,000 plus Vols fans in that crowd down in the lower level. So I definitely think that made a difference. They still had the advantage with crowd size, obviously. But I'll tell you what, the Vols fans, they hung in there, and it kind of turned around in the second half to where really the crowd wasn't as much of a factor as it typically would have been, like if you're at the Swamp or something. And we'll talk about them in a minute. So they wound up throwing for 274 yards. I figured they'd probably throw for 250, 300. I mean, they're both pretty good quarterbacks. The rushing attack came at us, and look, had it not been for that one huge run of 70-some-odd yards, they would have only had about 70 yards total. So that kind of skews it. I thought our defense did great on rushing. They really did. They held Pittsburgh down big time because Pittsburgh's goal is to run the ball, slow the game down, and shorten it by holding the ball as much as they possibly could. And they couldn't do that because we stopped the run right up front. Look, our defense really came through. I could not be more pleased with them. And Tim Banks put the pressure on them, bunch of tackles for loss, sacks, everything that you could want out of the defense. So overall, the defense did great. And you can see turnovers. That Slavis turnover turned into 3 points for us. That was big. That put us, 7 points up going into half, I was shocked. Man, I thought we were going to be down 17-0, and we wound up ahead after the first half by a touchdown. That was just huge. Another big issue was they missed a couple of field goals. That helped us a lot. And our guy nailed them, and that really made a big difference in the game. I think the field goal kickers played a huge role and helped Tennessee big time. And as we look down at third down efficiency, Tennessee was 6 for 16. Our defense did a great job. They were 4 for 18, so I couldn't have been more pleased with that. Total yardage, we had 416. They had 415, so it was dead equal. We passed for a little bit more. They rushed for a little bit more, obviously. But one thing that I heard online quite a bit is Pittsburgh complaining about the refs, and they were mad over the Brew McCoy call and all that. Look at these numbers. We had 7 penalties for 70. They had 5 for 28. The referees were not on our side, and I didn't think we got a bunch of breaks or anything like that. They complained about the Brew McCoy call, and they said that he ran out of bounds. No, he did not run out of bounds. He got pushed out of bounds, and then he came back in on his own and reestablished himself, caught the ball. That was perfectly obvious. And if they want to complain about that, that's fine, but that's a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. That wasn't even close, so, you know.
Shut up!
Exactly. Yeah, you look at that. We had 70 yards against us. They only had 28, so I highly doubt that we were getting any breaks from them. From what I saw, it looked like a fairly called game. I thought they leaned a little bit more Pittsburgh, but, you know, I'm going to lean that way anyway. But I didn't see it going in our favor, that's for sure, and the numbers bear that out. And we do have the Pitt coach here. He's going to talk to you for a minute. And he and I buried the hatchet. The game's over. Look, it's competition. It's the way it is. It's okay. Well, hello, Vols fans. Well, it was a heck of a game. I'm not going to hold any grudges on Sports Talk Jay. He gave me grief all week, but you know what? Yeah, this competition, the way it is, I kind of agree with him on that. Y'all played well and you won the game, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think it'd been different had our quarterback not been knocked out. But it was a good game, both sides of it. We beat you last year. Y'all got us this year. You know, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But I was proud of our team. I was proud of their guts and the way the quarterback stayed in there, even with a bad leg. He played gutsy, and that's all you can ask for a guy coming off the bench. And I couldn't have been more proud of the guys. And you know what? Good victory on your part. These things happen. We got you last year. You got us this year. So be it. We'll see you next time. Good luck to you the rest of the year. Well, all right, I got to take a little hat off there to him. That was a nice gesture of the coach. You know, it was a little rough this week with Coach – I'm going to call him his name, Narduzzi, and I'm not going to call him Scareduzzi anymore. Game's over. It's time to move on, shake hands, and go on. But we do have a big game coming up in a couple of weeks, and you know who that's with. And it's not Akron. It's Florida. Holy crap. This is the game of the year, the big game of the year. I was really worried about playing Florida, but after I saw Anthony Richardson 2 weeks ago, I thought, man, this is going to be a heck of a game. Now I don't know because he played really terrible against Kentucky. I mean, he threw 2 picks that were awful picks, and really he did not look good in the eyes. He looked like a deer in the headlights. And, you know, he's new to this. I think it's his 3rd start, but still that was not a good game. And I'd say Billy Napier is a little bit nervous going into this game against the Vols coming to Knoxville. Well, hello, Vols fans. Coach Napier here. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to coming up and playing y'all. I don't feel quite as good today as I did a couple of days ago, but I'm going to get my quarterback straightened out. Don't you worry. And one great thing about being the head coach at Florida is, you know what? If we struggle for a season or two, they're going to stick with me. I'm on my honeymoon period, and they have told me they fully support me. And they do not put pressure on coaches or get rid of them or anything like that if they struggle for a year or two. I know that.
Why? Why?
Yes, sir, I'm not worried one bit. Even if we go 6-6, I'll be fine. There'll be no pressure put on me. They've told me I've got a long leash, not to worry about it. Well, now, Coach Napier, you know, y'all have won a bunch of games in a row. Of course, you haven't. This is your first time as a Florida Gator, and I'm telling you, you're coming up into a hornet's nest. The city of Knoxville can't wait for you to come up here, and we're going to be, it's going to be something. Y'all better buckle up your chin straps because it's going to be a little bit rough. Well, you know, Sports Talk Jay, or whatever your name is in your little YouTube channel, I don't sweat you, and neither does my team. We're coming up there in a couple of weeks, and we're going to do what the Gators always do, and we're going to whoop up on you. Because my understanding is that's just what we do. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll just see what happens. But I'm not worried about you. I can tell you that. And I will get my quarterback straightened out. He's got all the talent in the world, and you're going to see that in a couple of weeks. All right. Well, you heard it from Napier himself. It sounds like we've got a heck of a battle coming. I couldn't be more excited. I told you the Pittsburgh game was the second most important game of the year, and I really feel like Florida's the number one most important. I think if we can go 4-0, which is what I predicted from day one, that we would start out 4-0, and I like our chances. Like I said, from what I'm seeing from Hendon Hooker, I think with another game under his belt, he's going to be comfortable. And, man, did that guy come through when we needed him in the overtime? Let's think about what happened. He runs a 25-yard touchdown, basically, and it gets called back. The psychological effect of that, of having a touchdown called back, and now it's 2nd and 13, and what does he do? He throws a touchdown strike to Cedric Tillman because they're so in sync. That was, you want to talk about guts. That's guts. Let me tell you what that is. That's like being in a playoff in a golf tournament. The guy makes a 30-footer for birdie, and you make a 25-footer on top of him to go to the next hole, and then you sink another one and win the playoff. That's what he did. That's how gutsy that was. So I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to Hendon Hooker, here's his grade. Absolutely. All right, folks, Vols survive, and that's what you got to do. If you want to be a champion, you got to survive the tough games, and that's what we did. And look, it might not have been the prettiest thing in the world, and we might have tried to give it to them, but you know what? We won, and that's all that matters. Ask Alabama how many times they've almost gotten beat. Wound up winning a national title. I mean, heck, they got whooped by Texas, but you know what? Alabama won. That's what the best teams do. They find a way to win when the chips are down, and that's what we just did. This might be a turning point for the Vols. And Coach Heupel continues to do a great job. I could not be more pleased with him. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Just got this started a couple months ago, and I could use some subscribers. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.